Are you thinking of traveling to Athens in 2024? Well, I've been here the last 2 days and I've been exploring this city center like you wouldn't believe. And I'd like to think at this point I've started to get a good idea of my recommendations for this city and what are my thoughts of a first impressions of Athens in 2024. So in this video, I'm gonna go through how I'm feeling so far, 2 days into exploring Athens. What are my thoughts on the city? Would I recommend coming here? All that good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, welcome back to the Lifting Nomad. My name is Alex. And as always, if you are new to the channel, my channel is all about traveling, fitness, living that balanced lifestyle. If that sounds interesting, feel free to subscribe and check out some of the other videos down below. I've been to almost 30 countries over the last 3 years, and I'd like to think I have a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. So again, let's chat about Athens. I'm here in May of 2024. I flew in from Toronto. I had a little bit of an interesting adventure getting here from Toronto. I had to fly to Cairo, Egypt, and then have a layover in Cairo and then fly from Cairo to Athens. But now I'm staying in the city center. I am staying at the Selina Hostel in downtown. It's called the Selina Teatru Athens. Has like a rooftop bar that overlooks onto the Acropolis. Absolutely incredible view. And to be honest, the Selina is probably one of the nicest I've stayed in. The bar is probably the best Selina bar I've seen in any of the hostels I've stayed in, and I've stayed like 10 or 15 of these Selinas kind of all over the world at this point. I will say I am staying in the micro room, which doesn't have its own bathroom. I actually share it with, I think 3 other people on this floor also have micros, and we all share 2 different bathrooms that have showers in them. And to be honest, for the price you're paying compared to a standard private that has its own bathroom, I don't think it's terribly worth it. Like, I think it's about half the price for this micro that they describe as a train or a ship bedroom, but it's actually pretty big. So I would recommend, totally fine to stay with a micro if you are staying at the Selina. But let's talk about the city itself. It's about a 35-40 minute cab from the Athens International Airport to get to the city center if you are staying anywhere around the Acropolis, which is most of the neighborhoods like Plaka, and most of the hotels and Airbnbs and hostels are kind of in this main city center area, which is extremely walkable. Like even from where I am, which is kind of north of the Acropolis a little bit, it would be maybe a 20-25 minute walk to get there, which is where most of the bars are, most of the clubs are, most of the cocktail bars, restaurants, all that good stuff. Has pretty much everything within walking distance. And for me, a walkable 15-minute city is everything. So far, I've been absolutely loving the accessibility part of Athens. Cost-wise, to get from the airport, it costs about 35 to 45 euros, depending on the time of day and like how busy traffic is. Generally, they recommend to use this app called Free Now, which was the first time I'd seen it. But I ended up just using an Uber because it was like about the same price, and I've never used Free Now before, so I wanted to be a little bit more certain that my ride was actually coming, so I just used Uber. Keep in mind with any of those apps though, you are going to get a taxi, not necessarily a private Uber like you normally would in other parts of the world. It is just going to be a taxi that is reserved for you, but I still would always do that. Anyone who's watched my videos before know I've had some issues with cabs in the past, so I always prefer to have a registered car that is able to be tracked and I know who I'm getting the car with. Outside of that, like the actual downtown city itself is very clean, very walkable for the most part. It kind of has this grimy edginess to it with a lot of graffiti, but not like in a dirty way. It's kind of hard to explain unless you've been here before, but a lot of the streets and buildings do have graffiti on it, but it kind of adds to the character of the city, not necessarily like, oh, I'm gonna get stabbed going down this alley, but more so like, it has a little bit of an edge. It's kind of like a city with tattoos on it. But of course, historic, beautiful, one of the most historically significant areas of the world, I would think, like the Greek Empire and then like Sparta and Athens and all this history that comes back to here. There's a lot to see and a lot to learn while you're here. So definitely a pretty historic place. You can't come to Greece without talking about the food, and obviously things like souvlaki and gyros, incredibly popular and very, very good and affordable. I've had lots of variety. The vegetable quality here is insane. We've gone into like some fish markets and some fruits and vegetable markets too, and I would say it's some of the freshest, most high quality food I've had in any of the countries I've been to. There's kind of a little bit of animosity between like Greece and Spain and Italy about who has the best olive oil, but our tour guide, we did this Eating Europe tour that started in the Monastiraki Square, and then we kind of went around to some of the more famous spots. She said that the Greek olive oil is considered the best in the world. So maybe that's maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I'm sure there's gonna be a little bit of controversy with the Italians on that one, but It is pretty good. I can definitely say that. I will say, like, on the food note, the culture is pretty late here. Like, things do open a little bit later than they normally would. I spent a lot of time in Argentina, so it's not really that different than being down there. But like gyms, for instance, we've been really trying to find a gym that opens early. Originally, our first day here, we went to this like not so great of a gym that was, it cost 10 euros for the day pass. They had like the 1-inch barbells, which anyone who's done like a home gym setup, when you buy like the packaged gym from like Walmart or something like that, it was like that. It was like working out in a home gym, but you're actually in a commercial gym. Not my favorite one that first day. Thankfully, we found a second one called Holmes Place. I'm gonna I'll talk about that in a little bit of a later video, but a super, super bougie, nice gym. Very expensive, but has everything you could ever imagine. But most gyms here don't open until like 7, 8, even 9 a.m., which if you're from North America is pretty unheard of, as most people start working by then. So I work out at home starting at like 5:30 a.m., which is when my gym opens. So it is a little bit different than that, so keep that in mind. Generally dinner is like 8 to 9 p.m., maybe even like 10 p.m. Lunch is a little bit later in the afternoon, like 2 to 4 p.m. The people here in Athens, like Greek people, have been very, very warm, very welcoming. I don't speak a ton of Greek, and by a ton, I mean none. The friend that I am here with, she does speak a decent amount of it, as she spent a few months here in the past, so she actually has a decent idea of how to speak Greek, and she knows her way around Athens. She's been here before, so she's kind of been my tour guide while I've been here. But even like the limited knowledge that she has, people have shown a lot of warmth and inviting sort of vibes when she does try to speak Greek, even though she knows like very elementary level. So just kind of nice to see a change like that. Like, I'm someone who's spent almost 3 years learning Spanish, and I'm fairly fluent at this point, but even when I am speaking in my broken sort of Spanish that I've tried so hard and spent so many hours learning, sometimes in Spanish speaking countries it doesn't really get the same reaction. But even her being able to say like, please and thank you, nice to meet you, good day, good afternoon, that kind of thing, is received extremely well. So I would say it's definitely worth it to learn a little bit of the language before you get here. It is pretty unique. Obviously, they use their own alphabet, the Greek alphabet, of course. Once you understand the pronunciation of like the phonetics of it, it's not too terribly difficult to pronounce things. But if you're trying to read it, if you don't understand it, it's obviously like an entirely different alphabet, so it looks crazy to read. Most people here do speak English in my experience. Sometimes there are like some older local Greeks who don't speak a lot of English. So keep that in mind, like when you are communicating with people, maybe in like the markets, or if you go outside of the major cities. It hasn't happened too often, but it is like something worth mentioning. Even some of the younger people don't speak great English. Not saying this is like a deterrent. Obviously their national language is Greek, but it is worth mentioning that if you are someone who struggles with communicating to begin with, it might be a little bit challenging on that. But just something to keep in mind. Of course, like a second part of my channel is talking about fitness, so I will like briefly touch on that. Like I said, the gym culture is kind of interesting. We did end up finding this place called Holmes Place, and it is absolutely incredible. It costs 30 euros, 175 euros for a month. So obviously pretty pricey premium gym. Pretty similar to like Equinox, maybe back home, something like that. If you aren't someone who like is really, really deep into the fitness journey, it might not be worth it for you, but they do have some pretty cool things like an indoor pool, indoor jacuzzi, saunas. This swimsuit drying machine, which I've never seen before, took like 10 seconds to completely dry my swimsuit after I got out of the pool, which was insane. I don't even know how that works. But there are a lot of like more affordable, sort of lower quality gyms in some of the neighborhoods that cost like maybe 5 to 10 euros for a day pass. That probably is worth it if you're only here for a few days. I've been going to Holmes Place just because it's worth it for me to have like a premium gym set up with proper barbells, dumbbells that go up to like 100 pounds or 40, I think it's 44 kilos. But at the same time, if you're not like someone who's going every day, it might not be worth it for that. Outside of just like the gym culture, the fact that you can walk everywhere, and it is like fairly uphill in some of the parts of it. And it is, walking around Greece, they say if you can get through the Athenian traffic, that's an extreme sport. So I would say you're averaging close to, I think since we've been here, we've gotten like almost 20,000 steps every single day, which burns a ton of calories. So if you are trying to come here and stay in shape without gaining a lot of weight from all the souvlaki you're going to be mucking, it is possible and fairly easy to do it as long as you are like out and about and exploring the city as much as you can. Outside of that, some of the sites we've seen so far, haven't gone to the Acropolis or Parthenon yet. My family gets here later in the week and we're going to be doing that. But from a first impression standpoint, we went to the Olympic like sort of Colosseum today, which is super, super famous. It's like 2,600 years old. It was from 566 BC. And then they restored it in 1896 for the first ever like modern Olympics that we know them as now. And it is an incredible site to see and an incredible building. You can actually get pretty close to it and get some good photos without paying to go in. And it sounds like there also is a way for the locals to sneak in and not have to pay at all. Not gonna not gonna talk about how to do that, but maybe worth like looking into. We also went to the Temple of Zeus, which is a fairly like worn down site. I know some friends who have been to like Rome, and they said it's really, really well preserved from the Roman Empire. But I will say like most of the historic sites here are pretty worse for wear. Like they haven't held up as well. Could have been that like the Greeks took just more abuse from over the years during like takeovers and different people having this land, versus like maybe the Roman Empire made a bigger effort to conserve like the things over the decades and over the millennia. But not really too sure, but that's just, you know, objectively what I've seen so far. The sites have been incredible, and I think the city itself is really, really beautiful. It is in May, so it's not as hectic to walk around and see some of the sites so far. I know in like peak summer, like July, August, it does get mental in some of these cities, particularly in some of the Greek islands like Mykonos or Santorini. But right now it's not too bad. The weather's beautiful. It's like 25 to 27 degrees Celsius every day. We have had a little bit of rain, but so far, you know, pretty good weather overall. I would say like first impressions, it's giving me kind of similar chaoticness to Croatia when I lived there, but it has sort of a little bit more charm to it. I think better, you know, objectively better food across the board. And I mean, honestly, the price for what you're paying in like downtown Athens hasn't been too bad. I am gonna make another video talking about price as well for like, you know, sort of daily life. But that's gonna be the end of my video. First impressions so far. We are gonna create a couple more ones of some of the content that I've had from the next few days while I am here. But for now, that's gonna be it. Thank you very much for watching. If this video was useful, feel free to leave a like or comment in the section below. Always helps the algorithm. As always, my name is Alex. Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.